So who won or lost the debate last night between Trump and Harris? We're going to take a look at that. The answer is, we did. So let's get right to it. Who lost the debate? You know my answer already. We did, the American people, and by extension, a lot of people in the world. If you were one of my non-U.S. citizens watching this, we all came out poor for this. Here's why. First, just looking at the way the media in the United States coalesces around a talking point, one single talking point. Allegedly, all these independent reporters out there doing their reporting jobs. Somehow they all come up with the same messaging, which tells you you're actually consuming something that has been pre-approved at a much higher level. So Philadelphia Inquirer, so we're at a local newspaper in Philadelphia, said Kamala Harris and Donald Trump spar in Philadelphia debate. She landed punches and he took the bait. It says right there, see? Baiting him into responding. Maybe she did. Maybe he took the bait. Maybe she chummed the waters and he just bit right into the hook in the center of the chum. It's possible. But hang on. Bloomberg. How Kamala Harris baited Trump into a debate on her terms. How about the New York Times? In a fierce debate, Harris baits a defensive Trump. Uh-oh, this is not starting to smell like independent reporting. Wall Street Journal. Harris baits Trump in fiery presidential debate. Okay. It's true that we don't really have media anymore in the United States. That's why I do what I do, because somebody has to point out the truth. And today's kind of a tricky day because it's September 11th. And by the way, if you understand the true narrative of September 11th from a scientific standpoint, you understand that the government story about it is completely false. Can't be true physically, just actually physically can't be true. And so that means we don't have an official report that makes sense, right? So that's part of the context for this, because we had a media that completely is unable to handle the truth. It's no longer in service of the truth. It's no longer even remotely in service of what's best for the country. It's in service to narratives. And we're going to talk a lot about this over the coming days, weeks, months, but also later today. I'm going to get to this as well, because when you have a bad story in mind, well, a lot of things can go wrong next. Right? So if you tell yourself, oh, I don't have a problem with alcohol, and that's your narrative, but you really do, you're not doing yourself any favors. Likewise, if you have a big spending problem and you're not looking at it and you're convincing yourself with a narrative that it's not a problem because so far nobody's shown up to repossess your house and car, then you also have a problem. The narrative has to match reality eventually. We're not doing that. And the media is supposed to be the gatekeepers helping us stay on top of that, but they're absolutely not. And this was on display during this debate, big time. Paul Sperry here on Twitter noted, why was the debate unfairly 3-on-1 versus Trump? It wasn't 1-on-1, it was 3-on-1. It was the two so-called debate moderators from ABC News. And turns out the woman who runs ABC is Kamala's best friend. Not just a little bit. It turns out this woman helped Kamala find her husband. I mean, they are like close, okay? And carrying on, quote, I searched this exec's donations in Fed state databases. Turns out she's given over $10,000 for each of Kamala's campaigns, Attorney General, Senate, President, and she even held fundraisers for her. So that's kind of weird. So it looks like Trump walked into a trap, and here's the problem. If you know you're walking into a trap, you got to get prepared, right? Put a little stick in the door, make sure that you're ready to like spring the trap with a long pole. If you know you're walking into a trap, you don't do that unprepared. Everything I've seen so far looks to me like Trump walked into this thing completely unprepared. I don't know who's running his campaign. They need replacing. Somebody's got to get to Trump if he wants to not commit rookie errors. And that's what happened here, as far as I can tell. So I'm very sorry. If you're for Kamala, I'm probably going to make you mad. And if you're for Trump, I'm probably going to make you mad. I don't like either of them at this stage based on what I just saw last night. Okay, but what I really didn't like was just how unprepared Trump was, because Kamala's programs actually worry me a lot. I think that her programs and policies end in disaster. Of course, for somebody very selfishly who likes to tell the truth, I just know that under a Harris administration, there's going to be a lot less truth. There'll be a lot more censorship, right? Because they're all about the narrative, and they have an official narrative, and anything that runs afoul of the official narrative gets bad treatment. I have every confidence that's going to be true because that's what happened under the past 4 years. All right. So Harris really didn't answer it. This is from Market Ticker. This is Carl Denninger. He writes really nice commentaries. This is one of them. He said here, quote, Harris didn't answer anything. She took questions and then immediately pivoted to going after Trump, throwing chum in the water. Trump, for his part, hit the hook in the chum. Yes. And thus negated his capacity to point out actual policy and that she had evaded and didn't answer the question. The moderators, air quotes, were wildly biased and failed to enforce the rules specifically related to any sort of containment of the two of them going back and forth and the alleged muting of the mics. Carrying on, this is also from Denninger, still his words, quote, none of what Harris proposed she had a way to pay for. Zero. $25,000 for a house. Sounds nice, but it will simply make the price of houses go up by 25 grand. The problem isn't down payments, it's that prices are too high. Bingo. And you can't wish supply into existence, which means dealing with demand is the only option. How do you deal with demand? Well, I can tell you what you don't do. Put 10,000 new people, you fly into the United States, into a town of 60,000 people, this is Springfield, Ohio, all of whom have $1,000 a month in government checks and will live 10 to an apartment, which is what's happening in Ohio and elsewhere. And all that does is force the existing residents out because they can't afford that escalation in cost and thus makes the problem worse. Did Trump key up on this? No. And if he had, he could have mopped the floor with Harris, since that is explicitly her position that these Haitians are good. And in fact, she supported bringing 100,000 of them directly, in her own words, into the country. Leave the cat situation alone because you don't have to go there. You can win on pure economics. And it's irrefutable. Absolutely true. So Trump did not come prepared to discuss specific policy. There have been very many policies that are quite ruinous, that are really big, high button touch points for, this is simple. This is 101, right? Simple. You poll people and you ask what they care about. It's inflation. It's the open border. Like, they're just these things that are very, very close to the top, and particularly with the economy teetering on the edge right now. And we know that non-native born, workers, as they call them, non-native born, migrants, they've gained millions of jobs under Harris Biden. Meanwhile, native born people in the United States have gone nowhere in the past 4 years. So this is a very simple question that Reagan asked once. Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? If the answer is yes, keep on. If the answer is no, let's talk about it. Trump absolutely dropped the ball on going after policy. He was attacked and he kept responding and being defensive. Now, it did not help that, of course, the ABC moderators were super biased, as discussed. Colin Rugg here, putting it down, he says, top 5 lies that ABC News moderators refused to fact check or falsely fact check during the debate. Number 1, mandatory firearm buybacks. Kamala Harris told Trump to stop lying about her wanting to confiscate firearms. Harris has previously stated multiple times that she wants to launch a mandatory buyback program. ABC moderator said nothing. She's also said that she wants to make assault weapons illegal. She's also said she wants to expand background checks and put more rules, more regulations on legal gun ownership. So all of that is true. ABC moderator said nothing. Now, the ABC moderators did fact check Trump on the spot multiple times. And by the way, they got some of those dead wrong. So now we live in this post-truth world where you can't even trust that ABC is going to come prepared knowing what the actual facts are, because they don't care about the facts. And when they're fact-checking, what they care about is, of course, promoting one candidate over another, which is the absolute antithesis of what that role of moderator is supposed to be about. Full stop. 2, the Fine People hoax. Kamala Harris claimed Trump called neo-Nazis very fine people. This hoax, of course, was debunked by Snopes, but the ABC moderators let it slide. They said nothing. This is so thoroughly debunked. Like, how do you even get away with this one at this point in time? Like, even Snopes has managed to debunk that one. Okay. More from Colin Rugg. He said, number 3, post-birth abortion. Trump claimed that babies were killed outside the womb in failed abortions under Tim Walz. Babies born alive in botched abortions are allowed to be left to die. 8 babies who survived abortions in Minnesota were abandoned and sadly perished under Walz. The ABC moderator simply said Trump was lying and moved on without adding context. And it's a fairly, this is a complex situation, but ABC dropped the ball on this one big time. There's something to that part of the story. So for them to just say false, debunked, is actually false. 4, defund the police. Kamala Harris laughed when Trump said she wanted to defund the police during a previous interview. Harris said having more cops on the street is wrong. She also supported taking police officers out of schools. ABC moderators, of course, said nothing. And then number 5, the so-called bloodbath hoax. Kamala Harris claimed that Trump said there would be a bloodbath if he's not elected, insinuating his supporters would start killing people. Completely false. Obviously, this comment was made during a rally where Trump said there would be a bloodbath for the American auto industry if he's not elected, and that's actually true. What that context there, ABC moderators said nothing. All right, so, but he should have known he was walking into a completely hostile environment, right? This is like you're a lawyer and you're unaware that you have a hostile witness on the stand, right? It's like you're a lawyer and you bring the wife of the suspect on the stand and you're the prosecutor and you don't understand that that's a hostile witness. Rookie mistake. You deserve to lose the case. So this is disappointing because this is for all the marbles and I want everybody to come fully prepared. And he just didn't. So let's listen in because this is pretty interesting here. We have, let's listen in.
Kevin, look, I feel deeply for Gen Z. I can't imagine being a first-time home buyer and you're staring down, $1 million homes with huge interest rates. I mean, is that the plan that will work?
I got 2 Gen Zs in my family right now, and they looked at that and said, wait a second. If you give everybody free money, you're just going to cause inflation. If everybody in the street has $25,000 extra dollars, there's only one home for sale, the seller's going to get the $25,000 by raising the price $25,000. I've been very vocal about this policy. I'm in the real estate business. That's a really bad idea, an immensely bad idea, an incredibly bad idea. And I think somebody should talk about that one. I'd like to interview her on that idea. I'll do the interview. I want it live. I want to do that interview because I know real estate. I know state policy. I know regulation. Please let me do that interview.
I would watch that interview, and I would watch it again and again. Kevin O'Leary interviewing Kamala Harris.
Well, Kevin's right, of course. There's a big problem here. If you give people, California's proposing $150,000 to help people with starter homes, but there's no litmus test if you're actually a resident, a legal resident of the United States, a former tax-paying resident, somebody who's formerly paid taxes in the United States. None of that. If you're an illegal immigrant, legal migrant, if you're a Haitian and, in Springfield, Ohio, you would also apply. So this is a place where there's huge disagreement out there in and amongst the electorate of the United States. There are people who have very strong opinions about this. I do too, right? I pay really high taxes and get almost nothing in return because my government chooses to fritter it away. And it does really ignorant things with my money. It sends it overseas on pointless wars. And oops, when the next pointless war ends, there'll be a new pointless war that starts up like magic because I don't believe the United States government is running our foreign policy. I think it's probably Raytheon or Lockheed Martin or some other shadowy group of people. But surprise, there's no such thing as a war-free period. And so my tax dollars go to blowing stuff up in other countries. I don't think that's a good use of money at all. I just don't. It's just not. That's how I'm built, right? I'd rather see, we still struggle in this country with places where we barely have any high-speed internet, which you can get literally. It's a basic human thing now that happens in the most, what you would call a third world country, high-speed internet, way faster than I can get here in Massachusetts. You can get in the Philippines in a little internet cafe. Finally, We have internet to most of the country now because of a private entrepreneur called Elon Musk bringing his Starlink, right? Which is a pretty cool service. So amazing that he conceived of it, but we do not spend tax dollars on ourselves. We spend it on other things like sending bombs to foreign countries, but also bringing people from foreign countries over here and then showing them a lot of love while also throttling our own domestic residents. So when you look at that, you say, if this was a family, that's a pretty dysfunctional dynamic, right? Can you imagine if your mom and dad left you in shoes with holes in them, but was showering free shoes on the neighbor kids? You'd just be like, I don't feel loved here anymore. So not a lot of love coming back to people of the United States from their own government. That's the case. Now, there were so many policy distinctions to choose from, and I'm just surprised that Trump chose to so few of them.
Tonight,
Listen in.
Kamala Harris releasing details of her policy positions for the first time on her campaign website. A K-file investigation has uncovered, meantime, a 2019 questionnaire. And in this questionnaire, Harris laid out some much more liberal stances, among them on immigration. So in 2019, in what K-file found, she said she would cut funding to ICE, writing, quote, "Our immigrant detention system is out of control, and I believe we must end the unfair incarceration of thousands of individuals, families, and children. I was one of the first senators after President Trump was elected to advocate for a decrease in funding to ICE." Well, now, of course, she's touting the Biden administration's executive order to crack down on the border. K-File's Andrew Kaczynski joins me now. Andrew, that's pretty incredible on its own when you're talking about what you found here on ICE. What else did you find?
Yeah, and this was a questionnaire that she filled out for the ACLU, and this questionnaire is really an interesting snapshot in time of that 2019 Democratic primary. Kamala Harris was trying to get to the left of Bernie Sanders. She was trying to get to the left of Elizabeth Warren, and you really see that in a lot of these answers, and I want to walk our viewers through a little bit of what she said. Let's just take immigration and look at what she said here. She said on immigration, she made this open-ended pledge.
All right, here it is. I mean, look what we have here. Taxpayer-funded gender care and transition surgeries for detained migrants. That's what Harris is for. This would be a policy distinction. This would have been something for Trump to potentially raise and talk about. There's a lot of things on here where there's very clear policy distinctions, and I don't know, I have not personally met a single person who, if I asked them and said, listen, an illegal migrant somehow gets across the border. Maybe they've been brought here by a border patrol plane, right? They've been flown into the country directly from some other country by the border patrol on one of their chartered flights. And we know, what did they admit to? 300,000 people got in the country that way. They land somewhere, they get put in a detention center, and they raise their hand and they say, hey, I want a super expensive transition surgery. Super expensive, tens of thousands of dollars. Just got here. Give it to me. And Kamala says, you know what? I think we should do that. Meanwhile, we have homeless all over the place in the United States. I haven't found anybody who says, yeah, we should offer free transition surgeries for brand new illegal migrants that we paid to fly into the country, that we should then pay for really elaborate and potentially, probably, now let me be declarative about this, completely unnecessary surgery, right? Elective, completely elective, instead of taking care of our own. Again, in the family model, what this is clearly saying is that if we put the federal government in the role of the parent is saying, we don't love you. We don't love our own kids. We love the other kids. We like, for whatever reason, it's a little creepy, but we like the neighbor kids more than we like our own kids. You know, it's just, you want to talk about weird and creepy. That's weird and creepy. Okay, well, here would have been a policy distinction to talk about is auto insurance prices are up 54% under Biden. Everybody with a car or more than one car is suffering from this. This is a big policy distinction. There are a lot of very, very clear differences here, things that could have, should have, would have been talked about. This is me preparing a few just things off the top of my head, it taking about 5 minutes. So I'm a little disappointed that Trump did not take the necessary 5 minutes so that we could have had a debate about actual policy distinctions, because this is what we need and deserve as people in this country. We need, I don't really care about cats in, you know, did you say this? Did you say that? slam this, slam that, back and forth. Like, what are we watching here? Like junior high school sort of, argument? I don't care about that. I care about policies. There's something deeply wrong with this chart. This is broken, okay? And I'm going to show you that we have a lot of other broken things in the next part of this. You won't believe what you're seeing. And so where does this leave us? Well, honestly, it's a choice between Tweedledee and Tweedledum. If we can't get decent policy decisions, if we can't trust people to be prepared, if we can't talk about the substantive things, well, neither of these two candidates, plus the debate moderators, nobody asked. 4 adults in the room and nobody asked about this, which is the biggest problem that neither of them talked about and no questions were asked. So for everybody watching, hey, for my subscribers, come on back to Peak Prosperity. We've got something else I really got to talk about right now, which part 2 of this, let me see, where did I put that? It is, it's this. We're going to have to talk about this. I think that based on the fact that I know there's a distinction somewhat between these candidates. And honestly, I think there's a huge distinction for me personally, because I care about free speech. And I think Trump stands for free speech a lot more than Kamala, obviously. I don't believe in the collectivist mindset. I think that socialist policies are deeply, deeply ruinous. But unless we're going to have people who are ready to show up and deal with the big issues, if they're not going to do that, we're going to have to brace for impact. Unfortunately, that's what I take away from the first debate, was just a little bit more concern for the future. All right, let's turn there now for all my subscribers.